Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Northern Lighthouse Board Vessel Replacement Project Industry Day. My name is Tim Curris, and I'm the Programme Director at the Society of Maritime Industries. SMI is the trade association for the UK's maritime engineering and marine science and technology sector, but we are very pleased today to be facilitating this event on behalf of the Northern Lighthouse Board for all UK, European and international parties who are interested in this opportunity. Before I introduce the Northern Lighthouse Board team, I would just like to cover some event procedures. One of the benefits of conducting this event online is that we have been able to make a good deal of information available to you through this online portal. Hopefully you've taken the opportunity to familiarise yourselves with the portal over the past couple of days, but don't worry if not, as there'll be plenty of time to do so afterwards, as this portal will remain live until the end of May. So you'll see on the left-hand side a navigation area. The agenda and speakers area at the top is the default screen, and you can see here the running order of speakers and a short background piece on each. In the resources area, the Northern Lighthouse Board team have provided links to all of the important documents that they will refer to today, as well as providing some general information on the NLB, their activities and the current vessels that they operate. The question and comment tab is the area to submit questions and comments for the attention of the NLB team. The questions you submit will be seen by the team, and we will answer as many of them as possible in the question and answer session later in the programme. Any that can't be answered today will be answered after the event and posted on this site. Please do submit your questions after each presentation so that the team can start lining them up for later. The networking area has been provided to allow you to link up with other attendees using LinkedIn. If you're happy to use this facility, please click on the tab and sign in using your LinkedIn details. You will then be given the option to opt into the messaging facility and be able to send direct messages to the others who have opted in. The Meet the Team tab gives you details of the wider Northern Lighthouse Board team for your information. And the Frequently Asked Questions tab provides some answers to the most common questions we think you might have. So do have a quick check of those. In the attendees area, you'll see a list of the attendees for this event, certainly those who consented on registration to have their details made available. We've provided this to encourage networking between yards and suppliers, always an important feature of industry days, so please do use it to work out who you'd like to network with. Next is a feedback tab, which I'll highlight at the end of today's event, of course. And last but by no means least, there is a group chat area to allow some live networking during the event between all attendees. I should highlight, however, that this is not the area to ask questions or pass comments to the NLB team. That is the questions and comments tab that I highlighted earlier. Finally, the event will be recorded, and the slides which are used today and the recording of this event will be made available on the portal shortly after completion. Well, that's enough for me on introduction. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce Mike Bullock, the Chief Executive Officer of the Northern Lighthouse Board and the Senior Responsible Owner for the Vessel Replacement Project. Mike will welcome you properly. Thank you. Mike.
Hello, I'm Mike Bullock, the Chief Executive of the Northern Lighthouse Board and the Senior Responsible Owner for this project. I'd like to formally welcome you all to this Industry Day, although in an ideal world we would have preferred to hold the event physically so we get to know one another a little better. There's no doubt that holding this event virtually does have its advantages, not least opening up the opportunity to participate to the widest possible audience. The slides for all the presentations you'll see today will be available via the portal. We have a diverse range of participants joining us today from across the maritime industry and government, which includes representatives from the UK government and Scottish governments in the form of the Department for Transport, Department for International Trade and Cabinet Office, and also Transport Scotland. Also, we have members of the Lights Advisory Committee who represent those who pay for our services, as well as colleagues from our sister General Lighthouse Authorities, Trinity House and Irish Lights. But of utmost importance, we have a strong cohort from shipbuilders, marine equipment manufacturers and suppliers of associated goods and professional services. So particular thanks to all of you for registering an interest in this project. On the home team, we have a project board members, including non-executives from our governing body, plus our professional advisors from OSK, ShipTech, and our legal team from CMS. We're also very grateful for the brilliant support we've had from SMI to organise today's event. The objective today is simple. Over the next couple of hours, we want to share with you our story, explain who we are, give you an insight into the technical requirement, and set out the procurement and selection processes that will be underpinning this project. At the end, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions. We've broken this up into a series of sessions with the relevant experts. As you will have heard from Tim, this event also aims to provide an opportunity for yards and suppliers to network with each other to identify where there might be an opportunity for collaboration in the delivery of the project. This is a really big day for us. A very thorough review of the future fleet requirements for the 3 lighthouse authorities, which was sponsored and ultimately endorsed by the Department for Transport, confirmed that the Northern Lighthouse Board would continue to require 2 vessels into the future. This was our green light to start developing our thinking about the new capability required to allow us to continue to provide our vital safety service to the mariner. Armed with the hard-won knowledge of the increasing challenge of operating an ageing vessel built around obsolete propulsion and other major equipments, our first step on the journey of this project was to rent a meeting room in the Royal Hotel in Oban. We gathered together crew members from all departments, our technical superintendent and the marine operations manager, along with Phil Day, our director of operations, and me. We spent half a day using a whiteboard to capture the most basic high-level requirements for a vessel to replace Pole Star. That was back in May 2018, and since then we have formed an integrated project team which has transformed that initial session into the detailed requirement that you'll hear about today. Some of you may well be familiar with our work, but not all of you will, so we thought it'd be helpful to give you a brief overview of NLB. To set the scene across the British Isles, there are 3 General Lighthouse Authorities, or GLAs. The Northern Lighthouse Board, who look after the Scottish and Manx waters, Trinity House, who have responsibility for England, Wales, the Channel Islands and Gibraltar, and Irish Lights, who have responsibility for the whole of Ireland. The 3 GLAs work in close cooperation to support each other's operations, share best practice, and work together on innovation. The General Lighthouse Authorities are funded through a hypothecated tax called light dues, which are paid by ships paying visits to UK and Irish ports. The important takeaways are that there is no UK Exchequer money used to fund NLB. The Department for Transport administers the receipts from light dues through the General Lighthouse Fund and control the purse strings through a rigorous corporate planning process and approval process. Very rightly, the shipping industry takes a close interest in the expenditure and effectiveness of the GLAs, which is discharged on their behalf by the Lights Advisory Committee, representatives of which are with us today. This project will be funded by a loan which will have to be repaid by the General Lighthouse Fund, and therefore will directly impact on NLB's long-term running costs and the annual budget we will need into the future. Therefore, we cannot tolerate increased costs once the contract is awarded beyond a normal and modest contingency allocation for a project of this sort. NLB itself was formed by statute in 1786. You can see in the picture our new offices at 84 George Street, which we moved into in 1832. So we have a bit of history and heritage gained over 2 centuries, but behind that Georgian facade, we're a modern and lean organisation. The function we carry out is what's known as a reserve matter, which means it is not a responsibility which has been devolved to the Scottish Parliament. Therefore, we report to and are administered by the UK Department for Transport. This also means that this project is subject to the assurance and approvals process of UK government. We gain our authority from the Merchant Shipping Act of 1995, which gives us superintendence over all aids to navigation within our waters. For example, those provided by port authorities, fish farms and on oil and gas platforms, which means it's our responsibility to ensure those providers are meeting international standards. We also discharge the UK government's commitment to the SOLAS Convention with respect to safety of navigation. And following the 2014 referendum for independence for Scotland, a formal relationship between NLB and the Scottish Parliament was set out in the Scotland Act of 2016. And this change means that Scottish ministers now appoint one of our non-executive board members. We're required to lay our annual report and accounts before the Scottish Parliament, and the Parliament has the right to call us before its parliamentary committees. We're an organisation that's absolutely passionate about continuous improvement. We've been through a root and branch organisation review, followed by a recently completed rigorous organisational change programme, which has delivered significant benefits. We are a quality organisation that meets exacting ISO standards, and we take great pride in the fact that we set the gold standard for management of risk, which is embedded across the organisation and at every level. This is not just a sport for the boardroom, but for every member of our team. This ethos equally applies to our approach to this particular project. All this is possible because we have a dedicated and motivated workforce. In a recent survey, 92% of staff marked their happiness score as 7 out of 10 or better, with over 50% scoring 9 or 10. And without exception, safety is our #1 priority. NLB's board has set out 6 clear strategic objectives. Our duty to provide an efficient and effective marine aid navigation service is obvious, but we are also committed to doing what is right for the environment, and this is a thread that goes through everything we do, including our new vessel. We aim to gain maximum benefit from our assets by using them for commercial income, which in turn reduces the burden on those who pay for our services. And as I have mentioned, we are committed to continuous improvement to ensure we are ready to meet the challenges ahead, and also cooperate closely with our colleagues in Irish Lights and Trinity House for mutual benefit. We are also passionate about helping the economy, whether that be by keeping the sea lanes open, facilitating tourists for the benefit of local communities, or providing apprenticeship opportunities to young people. This shows our patch. We have a long and complex coastline with 790 islands, of which 90 are inhabited. We have a team members across Scotland, with the main concentration in Edinburgh and Oban, both of which host small teams of technicians who carry out maintenance to aid in navigation, and with Oban acting as our main operating base. And you can see a picture of the base to the left of the slide. We also have small groups of technicians in Inverness, Orkney and Shetland. Plus we have 68 mariners making up the crews of Pole Star and our larger multifunctional tender, Pharos. And you can see the 2 vessels alongside each other at our depot in Oban on the right-hand side of the slide. And this shows the scale of our aids to navigation that we provide, which includes 200 lighthouses, 170 buoys, and around 100 buoys which we deploy and maintain on behalf of others to derive income. It also illustrates that we have responsibility to oversee over 2,000 aids to navigation provided by others. So that's a very brief overview of the NLB's mission and its people. More information is available via our website. Thank you again for joining us today and dedicating time to find out more about this exciting project. And I'll hand over to Tim to introduce the next session, which will cover the requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I would now like to introduce Captain Phil Day, Director of Operations and Project Manager at the Northern Lighthouse Board, Lars Neogor Horace, OSK ShipTech Head of Hull Form and Hydrodynamics, and Christian Holten-Müller, OSK ShipTech Head of Major Projects. They will provide an overview of the operational and technical requirements for the project. Phil will start by providing an overview of the operational requirements. Over to you, Phil.
Tim, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this open day today. Before I start my presentation, I do need to read a disclaimer, just to make everyone aware of the current legal situation. So attendees should bear in mind that any documents or parts of documents which either Lars, Christian or I talk through are working drafts and are therefore subject to change. NLB may well amend its approach before formally launching any procurement, including to reflect input from the market. So that's the formal disclaimer over. So I'll start my presentation. I'm going to cover 3 aspects. First, the operational capabilities necessary to deliver the NLB role, the operational constraints our current and future vessels need to work in, and what we require in high-level terms for a future vessel. So firstly, operational capability. As Mike's already set out, our area of operations is predominantly around Scotland, and the Isle of Man, right out to the extent of the EEZ. But we also operate in the wider UK and Irish waters in support of our other Lighthouse Authority colleagues. And the vessel is also occasionally operates in the wide areas of Biscay, North Sea, over to Norway and Europe. And therefore any future vessel will need to be able to operate in those areas successfully. And on this slide you can see two maps. The right-hand one just shows our aids to navigation, and the blue triangles, the floating aids to navigation, which our vessel may be required to go and attend, certainly in Scotland will attend. On the left, we have an area marked as response areas. This is our service level, effectively, for delivering to responding to wrecks and new dangers around the British Isles. And you can see the key there, but in essence, both the NLB, Trinity House, and Irish Lights cooperate with their vessels and fleets to ensure that we can deliver a response to a wreck or new danger within the timelines that are set out on the map. Firstly, to buoy operations. This is the key role for the current Pole Star and our future vessel. And we undertake planned maintenance of buoys, which is either annual or every 2 years, where buoys are lifted from the water and cleaned, serviced and returned to the water. We also replace our buoys every 8 to 10 years, where a buoy is brought from our support base in Oban and swapped with a buoy that's on station. We respond to buoy failures, so if a light fails or the buoy goes off position, the vessel has to quickly depart and arrive on scene to replace or repair the buoy. And we do from time to time deploy new buoys, either for ourselves or for third parties. So that would be a buoy would be built in our Oban base, put on the vessel, taken to sea and deployed in the prescribed location. And lastly, we do commercial buoy work, and largely this is the same work we conduct for our own needs, and this does include the use of tail tube buoys for commercial work. That is a buoy with a long tail tube on it, and the tail tube has to fit into a receptor on the ship. As buoy operations are the principal activity of the vessel, I want to take you through in a little bit of detail how we conduct buoy operations currently. And this is really, in essence, what we would want to continue to do with our new vessel. This methodology has been devised and adapted over the years, and we think we have it in a place now where we are both efficient and safe, and we wish to continue in this way. So for step one, which is 1 in the top left, the crane is attached to the buoy using strops, and the strops are attached to the buoy using the device you can see in slide 2, being held by the crew member. And the buoy is starting to be lifted from the water. As the buoy is lifted from the water, and moving to number 2 there, picture 2, as the buoy is lifted from the water and the mooring is exposed, the crew member will attach a strop using this hooking device that you can see in his hand. And the strop is then pulled through and connected to a wire that is led from the winch on deck. And if we move to slide 3, we can see the wire is connected to the chain and in being pulled through the side roller and through the chain stopper, round the center line chain roller and onto the winch. And as this mooring is now being pulled on board, the crane works in unison to move the buoy across the deck, with all ship staff remaining out of any hazardous areas. And lastly, moving on to stage 4, the chain is pulled further on deck, the buoy is lowered to the deck and landed on the deck, and the chain stopper can be closed, the buoy disconnected, and then the hauling of the mooring can be resumed. And eventually most or all of the chain will be wound onto the winch, and this allows the servicing and inspection of the chain, and also allows the buoy to be serviced and cleaned. Another key role for the vessel, and all Lighthouse Authority vessels, is to respond to new wrecks and new dangers. And in essence, these photos that I've put into this slide show the stages that occur. So on the far left, we see that the wreck occurs, and this is a picture of a wreck that occurred in Scottish waters in 2015 and eventually fully sank. A wreck occurs and is reported to the Lighthouse Authority, the NLB, by the Coast Guard or a third party. And we evaluate that wreck and its location against our response criteria. A decision is made whether to deploy the vessel and at what time frame it needs to be deployed. And clearly, if it's within 24 hours within the blue areas, then we will deploy immediately and make passage to those areas. If it's outside of those areas, we will make an operational decision on when to deploy the vessel. And when the vessel arrives on site, we will hunt for the wreck using our sonar and survey equipment, multi-beam survey equipment. Once the wreck location is identified, the location will be assessed, and if it's deemed to be a risk to navigation, then a wreck marking buoy, which is the far right picture, will be deployed on site, and indeed the vessel will remain on site most likely to guard the wreck until information has been promulgated further, and indeed decisions made about the wreck's future. We have some other roles as well. The ship supports our lighthouse work through the use of its workboat, and we will be looking to improve the capabilities of the workboat we have in the future vessel. We inspect third-party aids to navigation, and this is largely done from the ship, from seaward, either by day or more likely by night. But in the future, we also wish to be able to use our workboat to conduct some of these surveys and improve our inspection regime. The vessel conducts hydrographic surveys. We do have some drifting banks in Scottish waters, and we survey those on a regular frequency to monitor whether our aids to navigation need to be altered. But also we do provide additional survey capacity for third parties in the Coastal Hydrography Programme for the UK. And largely we conduct all of these activities that I've already described in support of our other UK and Irish lighthouse authorities. So moving on to operational constraints. Clearly, with any ship, there's physical limits that we need to operate within. But Lighthouse Authority vessels and the NLB vessels have some particular challenges. Firstly, inevitably, we're operating regularly in narrow channels to conduct buoy servicing and close to proximity to hazards. And that's hazards under the water largely, and we do have to get close to rocks and into shallow water. And what does that mean? Well, in terms of the future vessel, we've analysed our operations and our coastline and our berths and quays that we use, and the limiting factor is the Sound of Harris. The Sound of Harris, which, as you can see in this chart, is in the Western Isles between Lewis and Harris and Uist to the south, is an area where we have a number of aids to navigation. It's a treacherous area and it's a very shallow area. So we have to have a maximum draft in that area of no more than 3.4 meters. And to be able to turn around in that channel or close to that channel and safely maneuver, the vessel can be no longer than 70 meters in length. Undoubtedly, the environment challenges us as well, and the environment that we operate in is changing, as it is changing for all of us. But we do have the constants of strong tidal streams, high winds and squalls, and rapidly changing weather conditions. So when a vessel's operating or maintaining a buoy on station, it may be that it starts the operation in calm conditions, and within the time of a few minutes, a squall can come through or the wind can shift. So the vessel must be able to accommodate these shifts in wind conditions and indeed be able to operate in a stronger currents than might normally be expected. And of course, we find that there's increased numbers of storms that we have to work through and transit through. We have stormier seas, and to continue our ability to respond, we need to be able to transit the vessel in these poorer conditions. And you can see in this slide, which will be available later, an excerpt from our technical specification in regards to the station keeping capacity that we're looking for. I mentioned storminess, and this is something that is a key issue for us. We need to be able to respond to buoy defects in adverse weather conditions. Currently, our ability to do that is limited by the size and of the vessel and the power of the vessel's propulsion system. We are limited as well in our ability to respond to wrecks and new dangers. And just as a reminder there, you can see the response areas, and that we need to be in places within 24 hours in certain areas around the coast. We lose a substantial number of days to weather downtime. Largely this is due to the vessel's ability to transit between locations in poor weather. And we also suffer at the moment from substantial speed reductions in head seas. And lastly, and possibly not, but not least, we have currently a severe problem with crew fatigue and seasickness due to the motion of the current vessel Pole Star and a substantial reduction in its operating window caused by that movement. So, moving to the future. What are we looking for? Well, in terms of performance, we're looking for better performance in adverse weather. And following our work with OSK, we feel that we're able to ask for the ability of the vessel to deliver 10.5 knots at sea state 6, which is a 5-meter significant wave height. We also want to be able to improve our response to wrecks and new dangers. So a 14 knots in calm conditions, which will equate with the right hull form to this 10.5 knots in sea state 6. But equally, we fully acknowledge that those capabilities are probably not fuel efficient. And we need to be able to operate normally in a fuel efficient mode. And we want to be able to operate at an eco speed for normal operations and normal transits at 10 knots. That will give us more efficient tasking due to endurance capabilities, and the vessel will need to be able to operate a maximum draft and maximum endurance for 30 days. And the increased size that actually comes purely from the seakeeping improvements. We want to be able to store more equipment on deck and therefore be able to have a more efficient working pattern. The vessel also is going to need to be safer for buoy work. One deficiency the Pole Star currently has is that it's not a crane, it's not an offshore rated crane, and we need to be able to have an offshore rated crane for buoy work in the future. And with redundancy in our propulsion systems, this will enable the vessel to maintain on station until a buoy is replaced back in the water, should there be an equipment failure. And lastly, to make sure that everyone arrives rested and in good condition to do their work, we need to provide improved crew comfort. The current accommodation on Pole Star is of its age and doesn't provide the facilities or the quality of accommodation that is required in a modern vessel. Environment. This is clearly a huge issue for us all, and this vessel, because it's being produced for the public sector, must be aligned with the Clean Maritime Plan, which is a UK government plan. And we must be contributing to the UK government and indeed the Scottish government's ambitions for net carbon zero in the future. So the vessel will be a hybrid vessel. It will have a substantial battery capacity with a diesel electric DC grid, and it will be able to be charged from shore power. Diesel engines will be tier 3 engines, and we aim to ensure that we also deliver other environmental improvements, such as reduced noise in port through the use of shore power or running the battery on batteries for 12 hours. And at sea, we want to be able to use the batteries for short periods of transit at low speed, overnight at anchor, and indeed when we're in DP operations in normal calmer conditions. And we want to deliver lower underwater noise, particularly when we're operating close to our lighthouses, where many of them are in protected areas and there's substantial sea life that could be impacted by our operations. Inevitably, and as almost as a requirement, we will have to have a ballast water treatment system, and we're looking to ensure that our sewage and any other discharges are treated in the best way possible, and that we do not discharge microplastics to the water. The vessel will be constructed in a way that protects the fuel tanks and also provides for two compartment flooding survivability. As you've seen already, we operate close to navigational danger, and we think this is a prudent position to take. There is history of Lighthouse Authority vessels having damage, and we think this is a prudent thing to do. And lastly, and I think most importantly, as the world is on this journey towards net carbon zero, our vessel needs to be upgradable. And what we've done to ensure that we can upgrade and move to even better technologies in the future is the position the engine room in a place where we can get to it and take equipment in and out, ensure that we have an electrical system that can be upgraded and new means of generation attached. And that will therefore allow for perhaps potentially new fuels or new power generation in the future. And moving to my last slide, operational capability. All of these things, therefore, are going to give us improved operational efficiency. But just to remind everyone, we must be able to operate within the Sound of Harris, and therefore there is a length and draft restriction for operations in the Sound of Harris. The increased length, which again is purely down to seakeeping considerations, and to explain that further, when we looked at lesser figures than 70 metres and we did some very thorough examination of 65 metres, we found that there was a substantially poorer vessel and hull performance. And therefore 70 metres is the figure that we want to be close to in terms of the final hull form. But these increased deck also gives us some other capabilities. For little or no additional cost, we're looking to make sure that the vessel is capable of having third-party ROV and AUV equipment on board, and that allows us to make some commercial income in the future. We were able to, with this type of vessel, to ensure that the chain winch is capable of towing, and therefore that the vessel can meet a first response emergency tow capability, with a bollard pull that is purely calculated from the outcomes of all the other things we're doing to build the vessel. We do not have a target bollard pull. And with an improved workboat and a heave compensated crane, we're able to launch the workboat in better conditions and make sure we can do workboat operations safer. And lastly, we feel that the addition of a fire monitor is a low cost addition and brings a much social benefit should it need to be used through the vessel's life. So that concludes my part of the presentation. I'll hand you back to Tim, and you'll hear from Lars and Christian shortly. Tim.
Thank you, Phil. That was a fascinating insight into your operational requirements. Next, we have Lars Neogor-Horis, OSK ShipTech Head of Hull Form and Hydrodynamics. Lars is going to take us through the hull design and performance. Over to you, Lars.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lars. I'm a naval architect at OSK ShipTech. You heard all the considerations from NLB side that Phil has just gone through is the basis for our work during the design. But before we get to this arrangement, we have a lot of design calculations to do. We start by laying out the first guess of main dimensions in a block general arrangement. We work on the main dimensions until the layout of all major spaces roughly matches the requirements. We need to have an early estimate of the weight and center of gravity. We need this to develop the hull lines, and we need the hull lines to check stability and to calculate speed and power, and so on. We make the calculations of weight and center of gravity based on a volume model and volume weights. The volume weights we get from the steel structure based on the dimensions of a typical midship section of the vessel. From the lightweight and deadweight, we have the requirement for the total displacement. We then start to develop the hull lines. As mentioned, it's the foundation for the design calculations that I'm going to present. Hull form is always a compromise. The displacement requirement at low draft in the Sound of Harris, as Phil just mentioned, it requires a high block coefficient. It requires a full hull form. But the low speed reduction in waves, it requires a slender hull form. That is indeed conflicting goals. The hull form that we have developed in this early design stage, it has the required displacement at the low draft, and with a high vertical stem, the forward lines are still relatively sharp. For performance in calm water, we focused on the eco speed of 10 knots. We started by statistical methods, but the latest hull form is checked in computational fluid dynamics, CFD, and by model test at the Force model test facility in Denmark. The results of the CFD calculations, the dotted blue, and the model tests, the solid red, they show a very close correspondence. As you can see, the vessel should be able to sail more than 14 knots in calm water with 2 propellers, each 2,000 kilowatts. In the tender specification, we include a large margin, so the requirement is 14 knots. That's because the calm water speed is actually not a direct requirement. It's given from the speed power requirement in waves. We saw a very close correspondence between CFD and model test. We are therefore using the model test results for one regular sea pattern to calibrate the CFD results in waves. We do the CFD calculations in the same regular seas as in the model test for calibration, and then we do the actual CFD calculations in a irregular sea for the design calculations. This is a summary of speed and power in calm water and waves. The solid green line is the estimated speed in sea state 6 calculated in CFD. The speed in waves should be around 11 knots with 2 propellers, each 2,000 kilowatts. In the tender specification, we include a margin, so the requirement is 10.5 knots. Phil, he mentioned the importance of seakeeping, so we investigate the seakeeping capabilities with a motion analysis. We check the resulting motions against the Norforsk guidelines. So, and up to 5 meter wave height, there are only limitations on wave height in head seas. The azimuth propellers, they are mainly dimensioned from the speed and power requirement in waves. To dimension the bow propellers and check the azimuth propellers, the power of the azimuth propellers, we are also doing a station keeping analysis. The environmental parameters we use to dimension the propellers are 40 knot beam wind, all thrusters intact, or 30 knot wind with 30 degrees from the bow, any one thruster could fail, or 6 knots current within 10 degrees from bow or stern, and any one thruster could fail. From those requirements, we have calculated the two bow propellers to be 415 kilowatts each. Finally, of course, we investigate stability all the way through the design phase. We have the maximum deadweight departure with 250 tons of deck load, but as Phil also mentioned, the governing loading condition is the Sound of Harris departure. The maximum draft is required to be less than 3.4 meters, and we have the deck load reduced to 100 tons. We have water in the anti-heeling tanks, in the anti-heeling system for the buoy crane operations. We have water in the roll damping tanks so that we improve the seakeeping. But to keep the displacement as low as possible, the Sound of Harris loading condition is to have no additional ballast water. Now I will hand it over to Christian to explain how we progressed from the initial block general arrangement to a tender general arrangement. Thank you.
We're now going to hand over to Christian Holten-Müller, OSK ShipTech Head of Major Projects, who will provide an overview of the general arrangement and the technical specification. Over to you, Christian.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to take you walk through the general arrangement and give you a little info on the specification. It's been this general arrangement has been developed in close cooperation with the NLB, the technical work group. That has been a joint force, and this started in June 2020. The general arrangement is a plan that should be regarded as a proof of concept, confirming that all the specification requirements laid out and are reasonable and achievable. And the observant audience will see that on this main dimension that we have 3.84, but actually the last mention should be 3.9 at the max draught. The compartment in the general arrangement, starting from below the main deck here, from the aft, we have the azimuth thruster room, going forward to the fuel oil tanks and hold. We also has a carpentry workshop, and in front of that we have the machinery arrangement, and as Phil mentioned, the tail tubes pipes here to load in the tail tubes for the buoys are located here, and here we have got the casings and the ventilation from the engine room. Going forward, we have some workshops here, and we have the freshwater tanks and the sewage compartments here, and to the sides in this position here we have the battery rooms, And forward here we have some stores and of course the azimuth, the bow thruster and the forepeak. Going to the main deck, we have the buoy handling deck here, quite extensive, and of course the significant buoy crane here, and the auxiliary crane as Phil mentioned. But I will revert later with more specifics on the working deck. On the main deck here, we have in the superstructure, we have in the accommodation, we have the changing room with direct access from the buoy deck, and also we have the first aid room. And going to this area here, we have the common area for mess room and galley and lounge and provision and stores in this part here. On the lower forecastle deck, we have the ship office. We have the crew single cabins. We have a laundry and linen and stores room and cleaning room, and also we have the HVAC room position here. On the upper forecastle deck here, we have the conference room and the senior officers' cabins in this area here. On top of that, we have the bridge deck, and below the bridge deck here, we have a technical room with a reduced height to room the electronic equipment. On the wheelhouse, we have the navigation consoles, of course, and the bridge and wing maneuvering consoles at extreme aft, with a good view to the aft deck and over the ship side operations. In the special features, we can say that, as Lars mentioned, the low draught and a relative high dead base and the large working decks actually leaves limited space for the footprints for the accommodation and superstructure area, which is a relatively high superstructure. As Phil mentioned, the main engine rooms are positioned outside the superstructure here, so for future refurbishment if needed. Also, I will mention we have a vertical trunk here in order to do any replacement of batteries going this way up here, and also, of course, it serves as a provision cargo trunk. Further, we have the bottom equipment. We have a high precision acoustic positioning probe here, a retractable probe here, and in the trunk here we have a hull-mounted multi-beam echo sounder. And lastly, we also have the firefighting monitor here on 600 cubes per hour. Going forward to the buoy deck, which is actually the most important area. We are able to put on 4 of the type 2 buoys of 5 ton each, and to also put one type 1 buoy of 12.5 tons. At the same time, do maintenance of another 12.5 tons buoy. This is done by a heave-compensated crane with an outreach of 40 meters. It's a 20-ton crane, and that gives us actually a 5-meter outreach from the ship side. And as Phil was mentioning, the chain is handled through hauling in through the winch. We have a turning table here, and we have the winch over here, and it passed the riseable table here. So when you want to do a maintenance or repair of the chains, these table here are raised up in a fine working position. We also had to carry and launch a heavy-duty workboat of 4,000 kilo displacement. This is located here, and it's launched by the auxiliary crane here, which is also a heave compensated crane. It can work in offshore or with ship side, and also it's a man riding crane because there will be a person on board in a workboat when it's launched. And also there are 40 feet and 20 feet positions here for third-party equipment. And as Phil was mentioning, we have as towing, this winch here is a combined towing and chain winch, and we have a small towing rollers here, detachable, so we can actually do towing according to the bollard pull. At the ship side, we have recessed stairs, so we have access to the water plane for cleaning buoys and also for access to the working boats. And the whole deck will be covered by wood, as normally be seen on supply vessels. In the aft part, you can see we have two, we'll not say soft spots, but we have two hatches here, or it's not hatches, it's actually the steel structure will be prepared for replacement, to get off, to do replacement of the azimuth thrusters, should that be the case. Going to the machinery, all the features regarding the speed of 14 knots, the station keeping, and the DB2 redundancy failure mode in all conditions has been solved by this arrangement here. Whereas we have two pieces of 2,000 kilowatts acid thrusters in the aft. We have three pieces of 3,000 kilowatts generators here, in order to have a high redundancy. And there are, of course, tier 3 and have selective catalytic reduction, ACR, and waste heat recovering also. In the battery room here, we have two battery banks, each of 2,500 to 3,000 kilowatt hours, and they can be charged cold ironing or charged by the generators with a peak shaving. Also Phil mentioned, the electric powering system is based on direct current, the DC grid, on a main switchboard with the necessary voltage transforming and frequency control. And the whole system is controlled by the state-of-the-art control monitoring and alarms system, which also including integrated power and energy storage management system. So they're all in one. In the special features here, I would say all the compartments here and rooms are accessible throughout the length of the hull, as only a few watertight bulkhead and watertight doors are required. You can actually go from the very front of the vessel all the way through the one watertight bulkhead here, one watertight bulkhead here, around here, and one watertight bulkhead here, and to the aft. So it actually is accessible throughout the length of the vessel. Also, as Phil mentioned, no tank containing oils are directed to the shallow, and right now we have foreseen box coolers, but there will also optional be. We are also thinking of having saltwater circulating tanks with a cooling rack inside. Okay. Go into the technical specification. The way it is configured is, I guess many of you are acquainted with the SFI. This is more or less same, just structured configured in another way. We have the 9 main sections: the design, general structure, hull outfitting, accommodation, hull engineering, piping system, the main and auxiliary machinery, common machinery system, electric machinery, and also the automation. And each of these sections are subdivided onto subsections, and also in requirement specification, there will be some appendices, like this tender general arrangement, project arrangement, machinery arrangements, etc. The technical requirement specification. It is a requirement specification, and it should be seen that it describes objectives, performance, and capacities that standard and applicable requirements. So the builders shall acquaint themselves with the design and carry out all calculation necessary and take responsibility for the fulfillment of the intent and requirements of these specifications. That should be noted. And the way the requirements are noted is like we have three different kinds of requirements. We have the minimum requirements. These are non-negotiable. They cannot be changed to any negotiations. We have the key requirements. They are important features that must be delivered, and with an agreement could be considerably be improved upon and maybe negotiated. And then we have the conditional requirement. These are requirements where the owner may accept different solutions based on the input from the builder. So there are some freedom here to do improvement, and there also are freedom to suggest improvement and to negotiate improvements. The technical requirement specification. Well, as Phil mentioned, the overall length is 70 meters, and we have the design draught of 3.4 meters, which is a special requirement for the Sound of Harris, and the maximum draught of 3.9 meters. What I would like to highlight is the class notation. A lot of the features and capabilities are governed by the class notation, and I will especially highlight the hybrid power plus, because that means actually when we are doing a DP, you should include the hybrid power. And also I would like to highlight the shipyard underwater noise. This has been set to a level 10 for the transit mode and 5 for the quiet mode. And look into the requirements. This seems to be achievable, taking into account the load we put on the propellers and the propulsion system in total, going on only 5 knots and only 10 knots. As when we're going 10 knots, we are far below the 85% MCR. And also it should be noted that it's a key requirement that the notation shall correspond with Lloyd's register. For this tender design, Lloyd's register has been chosen, but not necessarily the one should be the final. But at least this notation offered should correspond exactly with the Lloyd's register. Okay. That's actually conclude my presentation.
Great. Thank you, Phil, Christian, and Lars. So that brings us to the end of the first part of the programme. We're now going to take a break. We planned 15 minutes. So let's start again at 11:15. Please do take the opportunity during the break to use the event hub facilities and just take a look around and do a bit of networking. But we'll see you back at 11:15. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce Julie-Anne Humphreys, the Vessel Replacement Project Management Office Manager at the Northern Lighthouse Board. Julie will provide an overview of the intended programme. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you, Tim, for that nice introduction. I am Julie-Anne Humphreys, the Project Management Office Manager, and thank you all for taking part in the Vessel Replacement Project Industry Day. I shall spend the next few minutes taking you through the programme. This will include the planned timeline, background on the business case, and information on the project's assurance and approvals process. This is our planned timeline, and where at all possible, we have added in dates. The GLA Fleet Review Phase 2 was completed in 2018, and one of its recommendations was for a 7-ship GLA fleet. A link to information from the actual fleet review has been added to the event platform. So on conclusion of the fleet review, Minister Nusrat Ghani requested NLB's prioritisation of a vessel replacement outline business case for NLV POLE STAR. Following the Minister's letter, NLB put together a project board and set up an integrated project team and began consultation with a wide range of stakeholders to gather technical requirements and to develop a strategic outline case. The current Minister, Robert Courts, has expressed his support for the GLA vessel replacement programmes. As you will see from the timeline table, running in parallel with the procurement is the development of the project's business case, which is in accordance with HM Treasury Green Book guidance. There are a comprehensive number of steps to complete on the route to gaining approval of the Green Book business case. I will cover this on the next few slides before returning to the overall timeline. If you would like to know more about what's involved in the development of a HM Treasury Green Book, we have placed a link on the event platform. The full title is The Green Book, Appraisal and Evaluation in Central Government. This slide shows where we are with the Green Book process. You will see that the strategic outline case completed in May 2020 was an appraisal of a long list of options. This was about 10 realistic and relevant options and provided NLB with a preferred way forward. The outline business case is currently going through Department for Transport, Cabinet Office and Treasury approvals process and is due for delivery in March 2021. The outline business case revisits the strategic outline case and determines value for money. This work includes carrying out economic appraisals, benefits appraisals, risk appraisals and financial appraisals. The outcome of this is the preferred option, which is the design and build of a new hybrid vessel. The information on this slide has been extracted from the outline business case. You can see a selection of the financial benefits found within the economic case, which are reduced maintenance costs, increased speed and improved seakeeping, reduced downtime, improved flexibility, commercial income levels being retained, and societal benefits. The work Phil and the technical team are doing is fully aimed to realise these particular benefits. This slide illustrates the approvals route quite succinctly. To the left in red and orange, you will see the specialist functions showing how NLB integrated project team fits together. On the event platform, you will find a meet the team information. We are unable to meet with you at present, but we've provided some smiley photos of the team for you. The business case takes us through approvals and clearances with the Department for Transport and Cabinet Office, right through to ministerial approval. An important point to note is that NLB can only start the formal competition when ministerial approval has been granted. This slide depicts all the approvals and clearances required for the outline and full business cases. In the top row, we have DFT, the 7 stages along the procurement route. NLB and the Department for Transport Commercial Board and Assurance Team are working closely to ensure that this procurement is robust and that the tender documents and overall process are and remain fit for purpose. Then we have the Centres of Excellence. We have much activity here at the moment and you will see dates that fit within NLB overall timeline, or the grand plan as the team know it. The Centres of Excellence are experts in areas of finance, economics, commercial and project management. They are helping to ensure the business case will deliver the preferred option in the way that NLB plan, which is on time, on cost and to the required quality, whilst realising the benefits that ensure the project is a success. The last line is the path to ministerial approval, and again we are in contact with experts at the Cabinet Office who are not only scrutinising the business case but also helping its development by conducting reviews. I would now like to share with you a more detailed timeline. We, NLB Project Board, our experts, DFT and the Cabinet Office are doing our very utmost to meet these dates. For example, the turnaround for the Cabinet Office on the route map slide is 28 days, but the team are planning to turn this around within 2 weeks. The team are here today, so thank you for that. The outline business case is due to be approved in March 2021. We cannot release a final selection questionnaire until we have ministerial approval. There are 2 more industry days planned, the 13th and 20th of April. These events offer questions and answer live sessions, one for technical aspects and one for commercial aspects. If more events are required, then we shall insert that requirement into the programme. We are planning to release a selection questionnaire in April and evaluations will take place in June and July. Questions have already been received and some have found their way to the frequently asked questions on the event platform. Please post your questions today and of course after the event. There is a single point of contact, Stephen Carvel, who will be collating them and fielding them to the members of the team best placed to answer. All questions will be posted anonymously, i.e. we will not provide detail of who has asked the question. We shall also be releasing a draft selection questionnaire in the next week or so. This is an opportunity for you to ask questions and offer feedback. Going back to the timeline, we've undertaken market research on the type of vessel required. The design and build dates range from 18 months to 26 months, including sea trials. We have built in the longest lead time, 26 months. But of course, if this can be designed and built sooner, then we would like to know. That is all from me today, and thank you for your time, and I hope that you found this information useful. I shall now hand back to Tim.
Thank you, Julie. That was very informative. We now turn to commercial considerations. We caught up earlier in the week with Paul Rogers, Director Group Commercial at the Department for Transport, and Paul recorded a message about some of the commercial aspects of the project. Over to Paul.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Rogers, the Group Commercial Director at the Department for Transport in London. I'm delighted that I've been invited to speak to you today. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I have a prior commitment to the department, which unfortunately I can't escape. As Group Commercial Director at the Department for Transport, I work with my team to undertake procurements in the central department, to provide commercial consultancy support, give policy guidance, build commercial capability across the DFT group, and through our commercial lifecycle assurance processes, ensure compliance with our commercial policy and procurement law to support the DFT's vision of connecting people and places. I'm particularly pleased to support our colleagues in the Northern Lighthouse Board, one of the department's executive non-departmental public bodies, which, as a member of the DFT group, contributes to the formulation of policy across the DFT family, which includes Highways England, HS2 Limited and Network Rail. The Northern Lighthouse Board now faces the challenge of replacing NLV POLE STAR after more than 20 years' service. This project, which will resource and time intensive, is one that my team will support, but we won't achieve success without your support in the maritime sector. I'm particularly pleased to see that a diverse range of local and international suppliers have now made the effort to attend this event. Your feedback to the Northern Lighthouse Board will help ensure that they set out as a client their requirements in a way which is both attractive and clear to the maritime sector, and which should ensure ultimately we have a healthy competition. From a central government and departmental perspective, we are keen for any major procurement, including this one, to maximise its potential to deliver economic and social benefits as part of a successful solution for the client. Her Majesty's Government post-Brexit remains committed to free and open competitions. For those of you who decide to participate in this competition, the level of time and cost could be significant, and it's therefore essential that we ensure that the fundamental imperatives of equal treatment between you all and transparency prevail. There are also policy drivers that the Northern Lighthouse Board and the Central Department are keen to deliver through their competition. The first major theme I want to talk about is social value. Her Majesty's Government will be seeking to create social value through this procurement, a legacy in skills, employment and education. The Social Value Act 2015 places obligations on public sector authorities, such as the Northern Lighthouse Board, to secure economic, environmental and social value through their procurements. From 2021, our procurement teams must now ensure that a minimum of 10% weighting to social value outcomes is included in their evaluation criteria for all procurements above the Public Contract Regulations 2015 thresholds. This is being supported by new government-wide evaluation models, which helpfully list the themes and outcomes that can be achieved in the social value space, with the themes ranging from fighting climate change to COVID-19 recovery to anti-discrimination measures within our supply chain. The model contains evaluation criteria, guidance on assessing responses, and reporting metrics to be built into contracts. These can be easily lifted into our tenders and have been designed to sit within our existing processes as much as possible. By harnessing the group's buying power and directing it towards achieving some of these crucial environmental, social, and economic impacts, we see this policy as a key way of achieving some of the department's strategic objectives. These include boosting skills and innovation and leading the way in the country's recovery to the coronavirus pandemic. As well as the Social Value Act, there is increasing momentum in the department around decarbonisation. The DfT Transport Decarbonisation Plan will be published in May of this year, setting out how we intend to achieve our net zero goals. Work is also underway to establish a new DfT carbon management framework, which will allow us to accurately assess and cost carbon with a long-term aim of changing the way carbon is accounted for in our procurements and our decision-making processes. And work is going on across government to establish more stringent minimum requirements for carbon and decarbonisation policies from our suppliers, which will be made public this summer. We have some challenges to meet and some solutions to find where they may not yet exist. We have to innovate and get better at accepting managed risks if we want to succeed. To do this, my team are leading a programme of work to unlock innovation in our commercial activity. We are engaged with the market and have asked questions of what the barriers are to innovation in our commercial policies and processes. And we've listened carefully to what's been said. We'll be taking steps to make more meaningful change, starting with more innovative and flexible approach to intellectual property rights and ownership policy, so that it's not a barrier to innovation, which should prompt growth and investment in the transport sector in the years to come. The next big theme I want to talk about is the levelling up agenda of this government. It has been well documented huge regional inequalities and, by some measures, is the most geographically unequal developed economy in the world. While cities and large towns in the southeast of England are amongst the most productive and prosperous places in Europe, most of those in the Midlands and North lag far behind. The UK government has set out its intention to reduce inequality and to level up underperforming and left behind parts of the UK through a programme of infrastructure investment, investing in education, skills, and research and development. Through our commercial activity, we're looking at how to further HMG's strategic objective of levelling up the UK economy, bringing opportunity and prosperity to those parts of the UK that have felt left behind. I'll give you an example today of how procurements are used to achieve government's broader aims. This example is HS2 Limited's rolling stock procurement for phase 1 of the HS2 programme. HS2 designed a bespoke stage tender evaluation model with 5 sequential evaluation stages, each of which had to be passed to get to the next stage. Stages 1 and 2 were technical compliance and technical excellence. Stages 3 and 4 were essentially labelled responsible procurement, and they comprised 2 key elements: health and safety and skills, employment, and education. These separate gateways had to be individually passed before a bidder could pass to the next stage in the competition. So to be successful, not only you had to be technically compliant, but also deliver responsible procurement, which delivered many of the broader policy objectives this government is trying to achieve. Only when those 4 stages have been successfully negotiated was an A-party able to stage 5, where the whole life cost of the proposal was considered. I know that Northern Lighthouse Board will be considering its gateways and how they will deliver on our broader social and societal objectives. The next thing I want to talk about is anti-modern slavery. Tackling modern slavery within the supply chain is high on the commercial agenda across government. It is estimated that around the world over 40 million innocent men, women and children are being exploited after having been forced into various forms of modern slavery. The Modern Slavery Act requires certain commercial organisations, including the Department for Transport, with a turnover over £36 million per annum to publish an annual modern slavery statement. This requirement will also apply to many of you. In March 2020, the government published its first modern slavery statement. From September 2021, ministerial government departments, which include the DFT, will have to publish their own modern slavery statements annually. This will outline the steps we are taking to mitigate modern slavery in our supply chains, and it's something you should be mindful of in putting together your bid for this opportunity. One thing I know that the Northern Lighthouse Board is going to be keen to achieve is supply chain resilience and the ability of them to make available critical spares, whether entire components or parts, to ensure high availability of this mission-critical vessel. All of the foregoing considerations will be reflected in Northern Lighthouse Board's balanced scorecard as they work through how they want to deliver this programme. So in summary, Northern Lighthouse Board are today starting out on a significant journey. They will need to accommodate many policy drivers with legal and commercial constraints. They'll need to incorporate contemporary green hybrid technology systems and be designed to be upgradable throughout its life to accommodate emerging power technologies. The vessel will also need to provide improved seakeeping and heavy weather performance over its predecessor, and therefore be able to deliver a more effective response to wrecks and new navigational dangers, as well as the routine operational tasking. And DFT will be taking a close interest in the proceedings of this procurement and providing support wherever it's needed. Many thanks to you all for watching and listening to this. Bring to the Northern Lighthouse Board your best ideas and your innovations, and good luck to you all. Thank you.
That's great. Paul will be represented by Alan Sandy, the Commercial Assurance Lead at the Department for Transport, during the question and answer session. So please do not hesitate to fire in any questions you had on what Paul had to say. Before you do so, though, you might like to listen to Colin and Stephen. I'd like to introduce Colin Brolly, Procurement Manager, and Stephen Carvell, the Procurement Specialist from the Northern Lighthouse Board, who will provide an overview of the procurement route to market. Over to you, Colin.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everybody. We have heard from Mike what NLV do. Phil and OSK have covered the technical requirements. Paul has provided an insight from the Department of Transport, and Julia has given an overview of the project. Stephen and I will now provide an overview of the procurement process and the timelines we are working to. In carrying out any procurement, we need to ensure it is compliant to all the legislation and governance guidance. This is a major procurement which is being overseen and supported by the Department for Transport and Cabinet Office. All stages of the project are subject to review and approval by a variety of external stakeholders, some of which Julia has already made reference to. NLB will use an e-procurement facility from Delta that all interested parties will have to register on. This provides full traceability and is fully auditable. The UK has now departed from the European Union. Therefore, the call for competition will not be published through the official journal of the European Union, but on the new UK Find a Tender service, which is now live. Delta is fully equipped to facilitate this on our behalf. As outlined in the strapline on this slide, we still observe the principles of public procurement, equal treatment, non-discrimination, proportionality and transparency. We have already published a prior information notice, which many of you have responded to. Thank you. The drawing here depicts what our new vessel will look like, and we hope you will be as enthused as we are to make this become a reality. The Industry Day is our next step along the route to delivering the project effectively. We hope you will find our project attractive and will want to help us deliver it effectively. We will use this platform to further expand our market engagement activities, which all help to enhance our working knowledge of the project and market interest, appetite and desire to participate in the procurement. It also goes a long way to help refining the process, so the more you provide feedback on, the better constructed our tender will be. We'll now share the key steps detailed in the image at the top of the slide. We are required to go through to ensure compliance with the legislation and the timelines for doing so. The image depicts the procurement route we will follow, which is a competitive procedure with negotiation. When we start the call for competition, the first element will be the selection questionnaire. This will consist of a suite of standard questions, of which there are 3 parts: potential supplier information, exclusion grounds, and selection questions. Part 3 will contain tailored questions to help us identify suppliers who are best positioned to help deliver the project. We anticipate publishing a call for competition in April 2021, and it may look along the lines of this. Standard selection questionnaire consists of Part 1, potential supplier information, Part 2, exclusion grounds that all contain mandatory discretionary questions. These are pass and fail. Part 3, selection questions. Weightings are to be agreed. Financial robustness, capability, capacity to manage the project, and competence. Supplier selection is a key stage in the public procurement where we gather information on and make assessments of the prospective bidders' credentials. This includes gathering information about companies' track records and financial credentials. We hope to tease this out through a suite of questions that will identify the suppliers to take forward to invitation to tender. These will help us better understand the bidder's capabilities and to move the procurement forward. You will hear today about how we want to improve social value where we can, but in doing so ensure that we are fully compliant to all the guidance and to be fair and transparent to all. At the end of the SQ, we will identify up to 6 suppliers to take forward to the invitation to tender. The more you outline within your submission, the better it is for us to understand your delivery model. We expect supplier submissions here to be clear, concise, and to capture all of your knowledge, experience, and capabilities. Financial assurances will need to be submitted, and references will be required to demonstrate your abilities. On this slide, we will cover what needs to be done and how it should be done. Environmental, how the vessel contributes to the environment. Commercial, consideration of the cost, production, profit margins, and running. Community benefits, how this vessel can add value to the communities it serves and benefits of delivering it. Sustainability, how it contributes in both construction and operational stages. Financial stability, optimal assurances and guarantees. Operational, consideration of running of the vessel and maintaining throughout its operational life. Integrated supply chain management, understanding all arms of the supply chain are engaged well and supported. Stakeholders satisfied. As you have seen, we have to keep many different stakeholders informed and updated, assurance required throughout the procurement. Technical accomplishment. The vessel needs to meet very exacting standards and be capable of performing in challenging weather conditions and heavy seas. It's the combination of these elements together that will help us understand the length and breadth of your bid. Following the SQ, we anticipate taking forward 6 bidders to the invitation to tender stage. This will ensure the best suppliers are identified and prepared to participate within the invitation to tender. This can be a costly exercise and we do not wish to burden suppliers who are less likely to get through the process. We have not yet finalised the criteria for the invitation to tender, but it will be a forward-looking assessment that determines your ability to deliver for this project, and building on all previous statements of the last 2 slides, we hope we have given you a good understanding of the invitation to tender requirements. The weightings are to be agreed, but the following are the key elements that we will be considering. Organisational proposal to deliver the project, commercial proposal, assessment of the design team to optimise, environmental considerations, construction, assembly and outfitting, community benefits, supply chain sourcing and management. Throughout the stage of the procurement, we will endeavour to understand all the capabilities of the bidders and assess them on a like-for-like basis. The weightings will be consistently applied and we expect to be able to identify suppliers who fully meet the technical requirements, have the skills, knowledge and resources to deliver on time and to cost, and provide the assurance that a contract can be established and fulfilled. At this stage, we will identify a shortlist, no more than 3, where site audits can be carried out. I will now hand you over to Stephen to talk through the next set of slides.
Thanks, Colin. Having shortlisted following the ITT assessment, we will have up to 3 suppliers, all of whom will be capable of delivering the vessel. The site visits will be conducted to corroborate each respective bid. It provides NLB with the opportunity to reassess the bids and the supplier's responses firsthand, to seek clarification on any act, and following each visit, reassess the bids to the same criteria as the ITT, but with the amplification of the site audit information. The audit team will address each element of the bid and seek the assurance that what the bidder offered is backed up in practice. It allows the team to seek clarification on any aspect and question any perceived ambiguity or uncertainty. It may identify areas of weakness or strength that were not so obvious within the submission. Following the audits, NLB expect to move the tender forward into the negotiation stage of the tender. This will be when NLB choose to explore, challenge, and have the bidder justify their submission and alter the bid if feasible. NLB may wish to address many aspects of the submission, and these could include the challenge of any element of cost, to look for more innovative solutions on design or construction, to seek alternate supply chain proposals, to question contract management terms, and improve stage payment methodology, or maybe question the efficiency of the logistics of delivery. Once all the negotiations have been completed and the suppliers have resubmitted any new or improved bid, the evaluation team will reassess the bids on a light basis. And I'm repeating myself here, but it will be to exactly the same criteria as before. The weightings and scorings will be equally and consistently applied to the resubmitted bid and assessed alongside the other ones. The evaluation team keep a record of all scoring and supplementary notes and have a clear view of all the stages of the procurement and the rationale that arrived at each respective score. This helps provide the assurance to all bidders should any clarification be required. It allows the team to justify all findings to the wider stakeholder team and substantiates the overall bid as we move towards award. It helps the team to highlight the respective strengths and weaknesses of the bidders and provides assurances that the best supplier to deliver the project in its entirety is identified following an evaluation of the bids, approved following award recommendations and sign-off, and awarded after the standstill period has elapsed without any legal challenge. And from here we can move the project forward and engage with the recommended supplier and commence delivery of the new vessel. Throughout the procurement, we anticipate building up a picture of how each respective bidder approaches the delivery of the vessel. It is important for us to understand the profile of costs, be aware of the mechanics of the overall build, and to have an overview of the sources of supply. And this helps us report on the project and communicate how each of the deliverables are achieved. And the timelines that Julie shared earlier provide the procurement route to award. So there's a lot to get through. We hope we have given you an insight into the project, and we hope we still have your interest in helping deliver it effectively. We are very proud of the work that we carry out, and we want a replacement vessel that we can be proud of too. A vessel that is fully equipped and capable of working in some of the most challenging seas. We are determined to design this procurement so that it identifies the best supplier to deliver it. A supplier that understands the requirements, has the knowledge, experience and desire to not only build the vessel, but future-proof it as well. We will respond to every clarification question to help all bidders' understanding of the procurement. And here are some direct quotes from the outsourcing playbook. Value for money is defined as securing the best mix of quality and effectiveness for the least outlay over the period of use. And that we will evaluate tenders based on price and quality, including social value impacts. We will do everything we can to navigate all bidders through this procurement and arrive at an outcome that meets all requirements, is compliant to the process and will be fully approved and endorsed. So we thank you for your attention, and any questions will be well received, and we look forward to working with you through this exciting procurement. And with that, I will now hand you back to Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin and Stephen. Well, that completes today's presentations. We've now got approximately 45 minutes available for questions and answers. We'll be aiming to wrap up by 12:30. So that gives us plenty of time, but we've had quite a few questions. I'm very pleased to be joined by all of this morning's speakers. So we're going to answer as many of the questions as possible today, but please be rest assured that if we don't get around to asking your question, the answer will be posted on this portal as soon as we're able. So I'm going to start the questions off with, I think this is a clarification really, and it's around a technical piece. It's NLB is working with a technical support partner, OSK ShipTech. Does this mean that OSK ShipTech is chosen as the designer, or is the design completely up to each shipyard to decide upon? And then there was a follow-on question, very similar. Will the NLB provide the shipyard the full design and its drawings? Is it a proven design? So, Phil, can I turn to you and ask you to answer that question, please?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Tim. So the role of OSK is very much to act on behalf of the NLB. We've obviously done quite a bit of work for the technical specification, and because we've got some very specific constraints and improvements we wanted to make, we've perhaps done a bit more than normal to ensure that our specification is achievable and deliverable. OSK will not be doing the detailed design, and it is very much up to the yard to provide the final design and the detailed design for NLB approval. OSK are involved in that approval process because they are our contracted technical specialists in naval architecture and the associated engineering disciplines. We are going to provide in the specification the general arrangement, a hull lines form drawing, electrical single line drawing, and these will be what you find in the invitation to tender when it's eventually published. There is a possibility further down the line with the yards that are shortlisted to share further information so that they are able to have confidence in developing their own design and finalising the detail of the design going forward. But the yard will have to prove their design in terms of its seakeeping performance, etc.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Phil. I hope that's answered those questions. Do let us know if you'd like any more on that. So the next one is I'm going to go to the questions on alternative fuels. We talked about the potential for upgrades. Are there any plans for alternative fuels to be considered for the future? Has hydrogen been considered as a fuel source initially? And there's a raft of infrastructure projects cropping up around the northern coast at the moment with future, for future hydrogen. Do you think that's an important consideration for future propulsion options also? I think that question would be aimed at Phil again.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, the choice of fuels right now, it has to be A, be deliverable to the vessel, and B, has to be a proven technology. So whilst we want to be leading edge, we don't want to be cutting edge in this regard. Therefore, the hybrid solution with diesel electric is the best we can achieve right now. But there's no doubt that future fuel provision particularly around Scotland and further afield in the UK, will lead to opportunities for us to choose alternative fuels in any vessel midlife upgrade. And that's what we intend to look at. But the supply needs to be available in all areas of Scotland and the UK, because that's where the vessel operates. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Got a question for Lars now, I think. It's about the hybrid battery capability. Can you just expand a little on what's anticipated from the hybrid battery capability? And in particular, be a little bit more precise on the required battery capacity. Lars.
Yes. The battery size, the energy storage system has to work in different modes. It has to work during peak shaving, during transit, and also as a continuous source of energy in DP operation, and also in port, etc. The capacity of the battery bank has been calculated by a combination of requirements like the eco speed at 10 knots for at least 1 hour, or a typical maneuvering situation, including hotel load, for 3 hours, or a typical berth operation for 12 hours. So that's the combination of those requirements has led to this capacity calculation of 5,000 kilowatt hours. And in this calculation, we have included a depth of discharge of 60%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lars. I guess this one might also be for you, but I'll aim it at Phil first of all. It's on hull lines. Can they be modified? And if so, is there any restriction on the hull beam? But if so much effort and skills have been put into the development of the hull lines, will hull lines and reports from the CFD and tank test be shared? Are alternative hull lines accepted? Phil, could you have a go at that, please?
Certainly. So the hull lines, yes, we have done a lot of work on them. We needed to prove the concept. They can be used for the future vessel, but as I say, the yard has final responsibility for proving the power and performance of the hull in the future, once it's before delivery. And we can share more detail, as I said earlier, with later down the line with once the ITT is down into a short list of yards and we're nearing the end of negotiations.
Great, thank you. So continuing on the technical theme, is there any special equipment to be supplied by the Northern Lighthouse Board to be installed on board? Is that another one for you, Phil?
Yes, it would be, yes. Very little equipment would be supplied by the Northern Lighthouse Board. There's a few pieces of electronics and also the broadband satellite communication and computer servers for the business network would be provided by the NLB. The remainder would be builder supply.
Okay, thank you. We've got one on azimuth propellers. Are only azimuth propellers as a propulsion solution considered, or will you accept any alternatives? Again, I think that's probably Phil initially.
Yep. Thanks, Tim. Well, we're very used to using azimuth propellers and found them very effective for the DP operations and manoeuvring the vessel. The vessel is often driven manually as well. But ultimately, as long as the vessel can meet the performance criteria, obviously other solutions would be considered in any tender.
Okay. Thanks, Phil. So I think we're going to just turn to some of the more commercial aspects now. So I think I'm going to aim this question for Colin. When the final technical specification of the vessel will be ready, and how will we be able to reach it? Should we be able to find it from the Delta eSource system?
Okay, thank you, Tim. Yes, the view, once the technical spec is ready, that will actually be made available to the shortlisted people taken forward from the selection questionnaire stage. So as a two-part tender exercise we are going to be following. So the idea is that we'll go out to the market first with the selection questionnaire, and then those shortlisted will be invited to tender, and those will be the people who will get access to the final invitation to tender documents. Okay, thank you.
Great. Another one for you, Colin. It's about the principle of award to a single source supplier. There's a major drive across industry and government for collaborative working between multiple parties to leverage expertise in different areas. How could this be approached? And is this an option for this tender?
Okay, thank you, Tim. Be fair, we are still looking at finalising the actual award criteria. There will be the options when we go to the market as well for various parties to be able to look at their structure and partner up and up with various organisations if they feel that is the best way to actually meet the requirements. But as I say, we're still working on the final aspects of our tender and the spec, but that is something we will look to see if we can factor that into the requirements, and hopefully there's opportunities following today for people to meet up on that as well and form partnerships to take this forward as well. Thank you.
Thanks. And I guess a similar sort of question to that is how and when can a subsystem integrator get involved in the programme, e.g. integrated bridge, navigation, CCTV, etc.? How do they get involved?
Okay. You want me to do it? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Colin.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No problem. Thanks, Tim. So, yes, hopefully today, there's the platform here where we're going to be able to, hopefully, organisations will be able to share and meet and gain access to each other as well. So it's going to be a case of, once we go out to the market with our selection questionnaire, hopefully organisations will be able to pick up on that and start to form partnerships there as well. We are going to be looking for a principal contractor to take on full responsibility to meet our final requirements there. So it is a case that we are hopefully indicated to yourselves as well already earlier on in the presentations. Now we're going to be looking to hold some technical and commercial working groups in April as well. So hopefully there'll be an opportunity there to keep those communications open with various supply chain organisations as well, and hopefully we'll make sure that information is shared as widely as we can do. Okay, hopefully that's answered that question.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Colin. And I've just got another couple for you, actually. The first one should be quite straightforward. Please advise the target date for finalising the ITT criteria. I think that's for you, Colin. But also, will all the presentation packs and sessions be available after today's Industry Day? And when and where will the registration for April's Industry Days be active and posted? Is that something for you, Colin?
Yes, I think I can answer most of them. So hopefully I'll go through them all. So first one is Industry Days in April. Again, we'll run those through the Delta format there. So everybody that's interested in participating in the exercise should always register on the Delta format. Looking at timescales for the ITT tender documents, we've got the selection questionnaire, which we're hopefully going out to publish at the end of April. Get those back in, do the evaluations on those June to July. So ITT looking at August, but as we've indicated throughout the process, we are going through with our colleagues at Department of Transport as well, so those are indicative dates there. I think I might have missed one question. Could you just refresh what the second question was, please, Tim?
I think you did get all that. It was about the Industry Days and the ITT. Yeah, so that's fine. Thank you,
right,
Colin.
Thank you.
Let's. So there's some more technical questions coming back. I think I'll aim this one to Phil. Is there a technical preference for a high-speed engine solution, or are medium-speed engine solutions also seen as viable? Similarly, is there a predefined preference for the electrical SLD configuration? Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Unfortunately, I'm a ship driver, not an engineer, and I'll perhaps ask Christian to take those questions, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there is a preference for medium speed, but not excluding our solution. And refresh my mind, the other question was?
Yeah. Is there a predefined preference for electrical SLD configuration? DC was mentioned.
Yeah. There will be a preference for the DC grid, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Christian. I think there's a question on exhaust emissions. So I don't know whether Phil or Christian here, but as well as complying with IMO 3 exhaust emissions, are you also looking at the ULEV notation, which covers not only NOx but particle numbers, which would require DPF as well as an SCR? Phil, is that something
I think that's probably Christian, possibly. It may be something we need to go back to on that one.
Yeah, definitely the engines has to fulfill the Tier 3, and also we have foreseen a catalyst device SCR, so to meet the requirement on that date of the contract, but also to look into future requirements. Sorry.
Okay. Thanks, Christian. So just continuing on technical, Phil, this one I'm sure is for you. Should international yards be considered, will yard supervision be undertaken by the in-house Northern Lighthouse Board capability with new build supervisors implanted at the yard during construction, or would the services of a third-party new build supervision company be required?
Yes, I can take that.
Thanks.
So it is an open tender, and any yards are open to go through the selection questionnaire and ultimately could be shortlisted. And the supervision will be a combination of some NLB full-time employees, and then we will contract in some additional support where we lack the technical expertise, either through OSK or through agency. And there is potentially the use of a third-party arbitrator to deal with the any phase payment process agreement in on that step.
Thank you. Again for you, Phil. Will integrated logistics support and in-service support be included as requirements of the award contract?
Thanks, Tim. Yes, not entirely, no. What we will be looking for is yards to offer us a total life cost estimate for any of the main components of the vessel, but ongoing maintenance would be beyond the warranty, would be something that the NLB would procure separately.
Okay, thank you. Let's come back to a commercial. We've got a general question here for Colin. Where's that gone? Yeah. So it's about the number of down selected. Why have we chosen to select only up to 6 suppliers after the selection questionnaire stage is completed? Stephen.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Or Colin. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Tim. I'll answer it. Thanks. The idea behind that is to, following the selection questionnaire, is to take forward contractors that are realistically going to be in with the opportunity of providing the service and winning the contract. We do appreciate that. You know, this is going to be an expensive process to go through for all interested parties on that, so it's really important for us to take forward contractors that have got a realistic opportunity to actually be successful with the whole tender process. Thank you.
And as a follow-on to that, Colin, if you're not down selected after the SQ, will organisations taken through to to the ITT be publicised so that the Tier 1 suppliers can engage and support potential prime contractors?
Okay, thank you for that question. Yeah, normally what we would do is provide feedback to all those that have been unsuccessful and also highlight the contractors that are going forward to next stage. So the answer is yes.
Okay. Thanks, Colin. So we've got some more technical questions. Let's go with... So, Phil, is the anti-roll tank the only roll stability device to be fitted? Could fin stabilizers be an option?
Yeah, I can take that. The roll damping needs to work when the vessel's in DP as well as in moving through the water. So we believe the roll damping tank is the only available option. Bilge keels also are limited in as much as they can't be fitted where the vessel pulls up moorings. So a good part of the vessel's flat side couldn't have a bilge keel on. So clearly the roll damping would be the key use or key component of any damping process.
Thanks. And a follow-on, well, not a follow-on to that, but another technical question for Phil. Is there any appetite to look at hybrid drive from gearboxes and shafts down to thrusters? Is there such a, can that be future-proofed on a capacity duty cycle? I didn't quite get that right at the end, I don't think, but
I don't think unfortunately I've got the... Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that question. If Christian can, or otherwise we can provide an answer later.
But
do you want to have a stab, Christian?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, we are already on electric drive throughout the azimuth thrusters and bow thrusters, so this is already provided for. If I get the question correct.
Okay. Great. So there's some more technical. I think we've answered that one about gyro stabilizers. Operational profile. What's the expected operational profile? Meaning the percentage of high transit to economic transit in DP, in harbour, etc. Have we? Is all that specified, Phil?
Yes, we will of course provide that in the final technical specification, but in simple terms, the vessel spends quite a lot of time transiting. That would be at the eco speed of 10 knots. There would be a short amount of time, or short number of days, I should say, in the higher speeds, but the vessel needs to be capable to operate at those speeds for a number of days. They spend quite a bit of time at low speeds or in DP as well. So probably the majority of the time is transit. Next would be DP, then anchor and in harbour, and thereafter last would be the higher speed transits. But we need to have the capacity to do those for a number of days.
Thanks, Phil. So this is quite an interesting question. We can deliver better decarbonisation results than you are targeting, but it may require that to be open to alternative general arrangements. Is that a consideration that we can take forward or not? So, Phil?
Yeah, I can take that. I suppose ultimately, yes. I mean, it's a concept design that we're providing. We're obviously looking for all of the components that are in that design in terms of the accommodation and wheelhouse and things. But if there are alternative proposals, we'd be very, very happy to hear of them. But as I think I explained in the fuel piece, we need to be able to have a sustainable supply of fuel around the British Isles as well. and that is obviously a key consideration in any alternatives being proposed.
Great, thanks. There's a question for Mike here. Are there any additional commercial opportunities with the new vessel?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That's an interesting question. I suppose we are designing in additional accommodation for the vessel, so she will be more capable of taking on other work. And clearly with a larger working deck, again, she'll have an opportunity to perhaps compete for other commercial opportunities which perhaps Polestar can't. So it does give us additional flexibility, and that's one of the sort of the additions without cost of this design that we put forward, is providing that extra sort of capability to attract other commercial opportunities. Thanks.
Great. Just skimming down. So there's a pretty straightforward technical question here, probably for Christian. What is the estimated power of the aft thrusters and bow thrusters?
The aft thrusters, is estimated 2,000 kilowatts, and the bow thrusters 515 each.
Okay, thank you very much. One for Phil. What is the best method for vendors to approach Northern Lighthouse Board to discuss technology that would offer operational advantages that NLB may not be aware of? For example, forward-looking obstacle avoidance sonar.
I think once we get into the formal tendering process, it will need to be through the formal procurement processes. In the meantime, I would suggest any approaches are made via our procurement team, who can handle those appropriately, and that would be obviously through Colin and Stephen.
Thanks. Did I ask a question on is there any special equipment to be supplied by NLB? I think we covered that. Yeah, thank you. So let's come back to just a bit more on the commercial side. Potentially this one's for Stephen. Is the intention to negotiate with all shortlisted suppliers before the site visits?
Yep. Thank you. After the selection questionnaire, and we have reduced the bidders down to up to 6 suppliers, that we will, and after the ITN has actually been fully created and communicated, we do anticipate that, or we want, as an interim stage, I suppose, to make sure that the bidders put in their most competitive bid, and the team will be assessing that and evaluating it, and it is anticipated that we will down select that time, and there may not be an opportunity at that stage to negotiate. We would take shortlisted bidders, we would go to site visits after that, and review a lot of the submissions, and we would anticipate only negotiating with the suppliers that are actually taken through the site visits, and after the site visits the negotiations would take place and clarifications, and after that a final assessment would be completed. So not necessarily negotiations with all the first shortlisted bidders.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. So, question on crewing levels for Mike, I think. Have we determined the crewing levels for the vessel? How many people on board are intended?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I mean, the details of this will come later in the project, but the bottom line is that the vessel, as it's broadly similar to what exists already, will probably have similar numbers. Given the sort of tasks on board and the minimum manning standards, we expect it to be largely similar to the numbers that are there at the moment. I think the one thing that's interesting with this new vessel, what it does do, of course, is with greater accommodation gives the opportunity to bring more trainees on board. So certainly that's the one thing we are going to really be looking at, is what we can do to support the industry with cadets and with our own programme for rating apprentices to give greater training opportunities at sea. Thanks.
And as a follow-up to that, Mike, will it be single cabins only? Does the vessel need to comply with MLC 2006?
Yes, it will be single cabins only, and it'll meet, I think it's comfort class we're going for, so it'll meet modern standards. Yeah.
Back to a technical question for Phil. So designs for alternative vessels with better qualities are allowed as long as technology and fuel exists. I guess that's a question for how far can we go with the alternative designs?
Yes, absolutely. I can answer that. The bids can provide an alternative design. There is no doubt about that. What they've got to do is meet the minimum performance requirements that we set. So that'll be seakeeping, speed, its acceleration in certain sea states, endurance, etc. And as long as we deliver on those, then we can, of course, consider alternative options. The vessel must, though, and this is absolutely must, not exceed the draft and length characteristics that we've set out. We have got to be able to do the task that the vessel is intended for, and that's absolutely key. But other than that, and there's quite a lot of those things ultimately, yes, alternative designs can be accepted.
Great, thank you. Okay, think another one for you, Phil. Can the Northern Lighthouse Board take delivery of the vessel from the shipyard, or would it need to be delivered to the UK?
No, we'll come and get it. It's I think as the vessel nears completion, we would bring the staff to the vessel, give them time to familiarise, and be handed the systems over to us on board. So no, we would bring the vessel home.
Thanks, Phil. Colin, there's a tricky question for you here. Do you wish or intend to share the envisaged budget at a certain moment?
To be honest, we've actually given an indication in the notice that we published at the end of last year there. So, I mean, obviously we'll be developing the spec further at the moment. So we will be looking at how we publish the notice again for the call for competition for the selection questionnaire. We may well look at the value option within the notice there as well, but we did put out already an indication to the market with our previous notice. Thank you.
Great. Are you open for bareboat or ownership only? So I guess a question on the procurement model.
Okay, so at the moment, obviously our research in that is that we're actually looking for the ownership of the vessel, and there's NLV's crew and that are going to be manning the vessel and that going forward as well. So I think that's the answer to the question, but maybe pass that one to Phil just to confirm that I have actually answered that one correctly.
Yeah. Thanks, Colin. Yeah, that's broadly correct. I mean, before we started this process, we've done a thorough review of vessel availability on the market, and we had to do a full appraisal of the different options. And through the business case evaluation, building new and owning was deemed to be the best and most suitable solution for us. That's not to say we wouldn't listen to other approaches, but that was the one that was deemed to be the most suitable.
Great. Thanks, Phil. Slightly more straightforward question for you. Will the workboat or SOLAS rescue boat be yard supplied or by the Northern Lighthouse Board?
Yep, I can take that as well. There's two boats on board. One is the SOLAS rescue boat, which we're looking to be a robust, capable craft in its own right, capable of operating in the sea conditions that we need to be in, and that would be yard supply. And then the workboat, we also, to make it part of the same capital bid for us, is also yard supply, and obviously part of the tendering process will be proposals on what that workboat looks like. But again, there's a specification within the technical specification for that craft.
Okay, thanks. Another one for you, Phil. I guess sort of related, but will the Northern Lighthouse Board provide a performance list, the actual products you are looking for?
Yeah, I can take that. No, we won't be providing a list of products that we are looking for. This is an open competitive tendering process, and it'll be for the yards to offer products and solutions and equipment that meet the specifications we've set out. And we would be looking potentially for more than one option within any yard bid on the key components, if that's applicable.
Okay, thanks. Following on from Mike's comments on training, how do we see any safety or operational training requirements being folded into the overall requirement? So I'm not sure whether that one's for Mike or for Phil.
Yeah, I might be better answering that one as well. So we are putting training into the specification for any equipment that's fitted on board. So whether it's the DP system, the integrated engine management control systems, any specific bespoke equipment to that vessel, we would be looking for training. We'd also be looking to provide the whole performance, vessel performance, in a mission simulator for the bridge teams as well to train on prior to taking the vessel over.
Thanks, Phil. So another question for Phil. When we've talked a little bit about midlife upgrade opportunities, but what might be intended at that point? What sort of upgrades do you might have in mind?
Yep, I can take that for sure. So in terms of upgradability, at this point in time, we've simply limited ourselves to making sure the engine room's in the right place, that we have an overcapacity in cable glands and cable ways so that we can run more electrical equipment. But we obviously have a mind to the future, and we know that there's alternative fuels being looked at, whether that be ammonia or hydrogen, as previously mentioned, or indeed whether there's opportunities for biofuels, HVO, as an option as well. What we have already looked at as part of the initial process was LNG and LPG as a intermediate fuel, but the storage tanks, the pressure tanks, and the size that would be required to meet the vessel's planned endurance are significant, and I suppose that will be a constraint for any future fuel we might choose to use.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, so we've got about just coming up just under 5 minutes left. I've got a question here for Alan, actually, in terms of what approvals are required from the government for the tender, and what's the Department for Transport's role in that?
Okay, thank you. So there are various stages of approvals required from the government for the project. So the project will come, once the outline business case is completed, to the department for sign-off, and we will also scrutinise the procurement and provide some robust challenge back to the Northern Lighthouse Board at every step of the way. So once that OBC is approved by the department, it then needs Cabinet Office and Treasury sign-off, and will also be looked at by our ministers. Following that, the procurement process will continue to be scrutinised by the department on an ongoing basis, and we will provide progressive assurance out there. It comes to stage the final sign-off of the selected tender and the final full business case presented again back through those approval channels to the department and also back to Cabinet Office and Treasury and Ministers. Thank you.
Tremendous, thank you, Alan. So that, I guess there's the follow-on questions for Julie then. Julie, you mentioned timelines. How confident are you that the Northern Lighthouse Board can meet the dates specified?
Yeah, thank you, Tim. We are hugely confident that we can meet the dates. We are talking to our external stakeholders, DFT, and we've talked about the clearances and approvals process. We're also fully aware of what's happening across the world with the pandemic, and we have built in some levels of contingency where possible. Of course, we're reviewing these dates, at a very regular period. And now that we've got this platform set up and we've got Delta set up, we will be able to revise these dates and let you know so that it can be part of your planning too, as to what our future plans are. So the answer at the moment is we're very confident that we can meet these dates. Tremendous.
Thanks, Julie. So I think that's just about brought us to the end of our question time. I've just got one final question for Mike, actually. What do we plan to call the vessel? Mike, finish off on that one.
That's a really good question, and we've not decided yet. I don't think it seems likely we're going to follow tradition. We've got a number of names that we have used literally over the centuries, and I suspect, although I can't tell you for sure, it'll be one of those names. So the jury's out, and that'll come later on. But I suspect, if I'm a betting man, that it'll be one of the names that existed currently or in history. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Great. Well, I think we've pretty much exhausted all the questions anyway, and we're about bang on time for the question session. So thank you all for your questions, and thank you, panel, for answering them so expertly. Of course, if there are any questions that further questions you have, or questions that there might be some that haven't been answered actually because we think that they need a bit of a follow-up, all the questions that have been posed will be answered and answers posted on this site. So please do check back. So finally, I'm gonna hand over to Mike Bullock once again to provide some closing remarks. So Mike, can I hand back to you, please?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That's great. And I just want to say thanks to all the speakers for their presentations and to all of you for contributing to the question and answer session. Could you play the next slide, please? And the next one. We'll be posting answers to the remaining questions as soon as we can. It's our intention to ask for early feedback on drafts for our key documentation prior to the procurement launch, and starting with the draft selection questionnaire, and we'll post that to the resources area of the platform and to Delta in the next few weeks. That's really a good opportunity for you to feedback to us to help us form the SQ. The Industry Day event that you've been at today, the recording of that will be available on demand on the portal and via Delta and via NLB's website. And also PDFs of the presentations and Q&As will be available on the portal within the resources area. So please visit Delta, our website, and this portal for updates on the project. Next slide, please. So in closing, I hope this event has allowed you to find out more about NLB, who we are, what we do, and the contribution we make to the safety of mariners, the protection of the environment, and the difference we make to our economy. And of course, I also hope you have gained an insight into this very important project and have become as enthusiastic as we are about the prospect of building a replacement for Pole Star that will set new standards for a vessel of this type, both operationally and environmentally. So today is just the first step of the development of the relationship between NLB and potential suppliers. And as mentioned earlier, there are a number of events coming up which will allow you to engage further on technical and commercial issues. I've no doubt that many of you will have taken the advantage of the networking opportunities presented by this platform. If you haven't, I would encourage you to do so, as it could be the catalyst for new or renewed partnerships between yards and suppliers. There is quite a lot of work to do between now and 2024, as I'm sure you'll be well aware, when our mariners actually turn the ignition key and set sail for the first time. But as you've witnessed today, we and our supporting expert organisations have established a firm foundation to build on. So the slide in front of you now shows the major waypoint steps ahead, but please, if you have further questions, don't hesitate to contact us. I'd like to thank our colleagues at the Department for Transport and Cabinet Office for the ongoing support that they're giving us to ensure we collectively deliver a successful project. And finally, I'd really like to thank Tim, who's done an amazing job today to act as the MC for this. Really appreciate it, Tim. And also to the SNI team themselves behind Tim, who have done an amazing job in putting all this together. And also for today's efforts and for all the technical wizardry we've seen today, to Catherine, Chris, Tony and Adam from Market Partner, who have done a fantastic job. At that point, I'll hand back to Tim. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike. That was very kind. Finally, before you all go, we hope you found this very informative, as Mike said, but we'd be grateful if you could fill out the event feedback proforma available under the feedback tab on the left-hand side of your screens, just so we can make sure that we continue to improve. But thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Goodbye.